In the span of about a week, talk of Fiat making a hostile takeover for GM, believe it or not, has actually intensified, with 3 Wall Street banks cited as either driving the advance or blocking the assault. However, before you put money to work, you're going to want to hear from Bloomberg reporter David Welch. He's got his ear to the ground, and he's hearing that recent events are not what you think. He joins us from Detroit. David, thanks very much for getting up early. Let me ask about, first of all, the way this would work, because we've heard and seen so many reports that we'll go through, but is it possible that Fiat Chrysler could somehow engineer a reverse takeover of General Motors?
That would be really difficult to do. They would have to find a private equity fund, or actually probably a bunch of them, who would put up some money and buy a lot of GM shares, or they would have to just get a bunch of investors on their side who would buy up a big stake in the company, and then essentially push it together with Fiat Chrysler so that Sergio Marchionne, the Fiat Chrysler CEO, could then take the whole thing over. It would require some pretty deep pockets and probably more than one other player to do it, and it would be pretty difficult to construct that whole thing.
Nonetheless, it appears that both sides have hired banks. I mean, obviously, banks are working for them all the time, but I saw reports last week that General Motors has tasked Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs specifically with defending them against this kind of takeover.
Yeah, let's not get too carried away with the Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs hiring. The two banks have been with GM forever. Back when Carl Icahn bought a piece of the company, which goes back to '99 or 2000, the two banks were hired just in case Carl was going to agitate for something. He ended up not doing it and sold his shares in 2000. They've always kind of been the house, Morgan Stanley anyway, has been the house bank, and Goldman has often been the partner. The two banks were again hired early this year when Harry Wilson, the former Treasury Department official, came in to agitate for a share buyback, which he eventually got. And that's kind of why they were hired in the first place. While they were working with Harry, or working on the project that involved Harry, that's when Sergio Marchionne's email came in proposing this merger. So GM sort of kept them on the arm, if you will, during that whole time. And then as Sergio's been publicly agitating for GM to consider this and pressuring shareholders to pressure GM to consider this, they figure, okay, let's just keep the banks around until either Sergio gets some momentum or he walks away and this whole thing blows over. So they're kind of standing by, if you will.
David, Sergio has also been very outspoken for the need for more consolidation in the industry. He is the head of the automotive industry group in Europe, and he's always talking about how much overcapacity there is, how there's still so much fat that they need to cut. What kind of consolidation is he looking for?
He wants a few different things. One is he thinks that companies waste too much money developing things like engines and transmissions and advanced technology like hybrid cars. He thinks they should all kind of, merge up so that they can spread those massive costs over a lot more sales volume. And he doesn't say that plants should be cut, but if you're going to consolidate, that'll get rid of excess capacity, which is right now chiefly in Europe. And arguably, a lot of the capacity, the excess capacity, is his. And perhaps even in the U.S., where Chrysler offers the biggest discounts on its cars and sells a lot of its cars to rental fleets, they've got some excess capacity here, too.
David, real quick, is there any other target that Sergio could obviously go after if GM is out of the way?
Yeah, Peugeot is the one that really needs a partner. They're primarily a European automaker and one of the smaller ones, and they've been struggling. They're in recovery mode right now, and that would probably be his fallback option if he can't get a deal done with GM, which looks pretty unlikely right now.
Cool. All right, David Welch, thanks for joining us, one of our
best
investigative reporters out of the Detroit Bureau. We work together a lot.